Bible uses the expression, we were born of God. Born of God. Okay. And this week I was thinking about this topic quite a bit, and I thought about my father. You know, my father who passed away 25 years ago, exactly 25 years ago, this November comes. Can't believe it has been 25 years. He was around my age when he passed away. And he was a good father. But I did not have a very good relationship with him. I shared this many times, but I want to just share a little bit today, okay? I just didn't have a good relationship with him. He's a good man. He's a good Christian. He's very devoted. He's one of those men who came to United States. We came to the States in 1976. The whole family, my mother and father, and my brother and I, 4 of us. We settled in Midwest, near Chicago. And, you know, he's a college graduate, but he had to work in a factory, okay? Making $7 an hour, something like that. It wasn't more than that, $7, $8 an hour. It was, pretty tough living. But he worked really, really hard. He wouldn't take any day off, and he would work many overtime days so that he could just provide for the family. And, you know, he was one of those fathers who never spent a penny for himself. Do you have a fathers like that? I don't know. My father's generation, they're like that. They're very, very stingy. We never go out to eat, and he was very devoted man, devoted to God, devoted to family, devoted to church. And growing up in New York, one of the hardest thing for me was our house rule was my brother and I had to be home by dinner time. That was the rule. Curfew was not 10 o'clock at night or midnight, but 7:30. Can you believe that? As a growing up high schooler, that was just impossible, but we had to. But it was a tough relationship, okay? And we got into many arguments, just couldn't converse. Very difficult to converse, okay? Even after I got married, it was difficult, right? And he passed away young, actually, when he was 54 years old, with cancer, and I can't believe it has been 25 years. But I was thinking about him a lot this week. I still vividly remember his image. He's slightly not as tall as me, large man, and the best car he drove was Chevy Cavalier, okay? That's not a very popular car. Probably equivalent to Honda Civic. No, I'm not offending you if you're driving Civic. Nothing expensive, right? Right before I became a dentist, he passed away. So he never really had a chance to enjoy American success or whatever, you know. And always he told me, I wanted to drive a Cadillac. He used to joke around, call me Paul. One day I want to be able to drive a Cadillac. But he never had a chance to. So I thought about him quite a bit this week. And, we all have 2 fathers, okay? None of you are sitting here without father. You were born of him, okay? Just as the Bible says you were born of God, okay? So if you're a Christian, you have 2 fathers, earthly father and a heavenly father. And probably the most important relationships in your life at the core of your inner being, okay? And I really think it is, because we're going to look into it today. What is father's role in your life? Among other things, he brings safety and security in your heart, okay? You are my beloved, right? You're my son. That's what father's role is. Without it, you have no security as a child growing up, okay? And I think about this thought because if it is true, according to this article, if there are 20 million fatherless people in this country, okay, can you imagine, how they're growing up, right? So I just want to start with that kind of introduction, and I'm going to go over what husband and father's role is in my marriage class today. If you're interested, you could come in and sit in. That's okay. And the most important thing a father can do for his children is to love their mother. Think about this, okay? The greatest gift you could give to your own children, okay, is to love their mother. It's like killing two birds, almost, right? Loving your wife and raising your children happy. When children see fathers loves their mother, they're happy. They're happy. And they feel very safe. And they feel very secure. I think that's how it works. Right? Let me jump right in. Okay, Luke chapter 15 is about the story of Jesus. I'm going to take this off, okay? Luke chapter 15 is the story of stories, actually. There are three of them. Jesus speak about this 100 sheep, one lost sheep, and then 10 coins. And then the third one is, of course, the prodigal story. And I'm going to just jump right in, okay? And there are three main characters in the parable. The youngest son, the prodigal, and the older son, which we're going to look at pretty extensively today, another prodigal, and then the father, okay? Three main characters. And often the story is focused on the prodigal, the younger prodigal. And I know you know the story fairly well, probably the most well-known story in the scripture. And the love of the father toward him, right? Or the story of rioting, rebelling, wayward son, recalling, repenting, returning home. The story we know very, very well. To the father who receives the son, whom they really does not deserve to be. But today, right, if we could focus on the father, okay? Because I believe that is the main focus of the story, by the way. Okay? It's not the son. Christian story is not about son story. I mean, Jesus story, of course, but it's the love of the Father. Okay? And there is a part one and part two. Part one has to do with the younger son, and part two has to do with the older son. So let me just jump right in. Okay? Luke chapter 15, verse 11. Jesus said, there was a man who had two sons. And the youngest son of them said to the father, Father, give me the share of the property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Let me explain what this means. In this culture of Judeo-Palestinian culture, patriarchal society, this is saying this, give me my share of the property, is equivalent to saying, won't you die right now, Father, so that I could get what I will get anyway. Okay? It's an unthinkable claim, rioting, heartless, rude, inhumane thing to say as a son, or thing to say as any human being. Basically, that's what he's saying. Okay? So, give me the share of the property of that's coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Between whom? First and son. In other words, the second son got what he was going to get, and the first son, the older one, got his as well. Not many days later, the youngest son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. And there he squandered his property in reckless living. Okay? He separated himself from the father, and he went away far. Okay? He went away far and made himself independent and squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed. He was so hungry, right? He was so desperate that he got a job. As a Jewish boy, you don't eat pigs. You don't relate to pigs. That's just unthinkable. But he was so desperate, he got himself a job tending pigs. And he was so hungry, he wanted to feed himself with the pig's food, pig's pot. Can you imagine that? Right? And I try to imagine this. When you're hungry, you don't eat very eloquently, right? Even at home. But this guy's so hungry and tried to feed himself with pig's pot. Do you think he was using a big spoon and just kind of like touching his side and eating eloquently? I don't think so. I imagine this young man eating like a pig, basically. Okay? Probably like a pig, right? And he was longing to be fed with the pots that the pigs ate, but no one gave him anything. Okay? But when he came to senses, transition of the part one, but when he came to senses somehow, when he came to himself, in other words, up to this point, he wasn't into himself. He didn't have any senses, in other words. He said, "How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread? But I perish here with hunger. I'll rise and go to the Father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as of your hired servants.'" You know this story. This is an incredible story of returning, recalling, repenting. But we're not going to focus on that today. We just want to focus on the Father. Okay? So he decided to come back with a repentant heart. So he arose and came to the Father. Now the Father picks up from here. Okay? And if you notice, Father takes over this whole story. Okay? I want you to notice. But while he was a still long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. It's all Father, right? It's all Father. While he was a long way, in other words, probably, I get the sense that he's been waiting every single day. In fact, every single moment. Right? Every single moment. I don't know how long he was away, but he was waiting. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him. He spotted him. Probably his demeanor, his shape, his clothing, his hairstyle changed over time, but he spotted him right away. Right? It's amazing. He spotted him and felt compassion and ran, embraced him, and kissed him. The younger son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son." And then again, the father said to the servants, the father said to his servants, "Bring quickly the best robe." Why quickly? What's the rush? I think it's his heart, isn't it? Bring quickly the best robe and put it on him and put a ring on his hand and shoe on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let us eat and celebrate. Why? For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found, and they began to celebrate. Okay, that's part one. Okay, and I want you to think about this from Father's point of view. Okay, I can almost sense his ecstatic joy and excitement, the joy of having him with him at home. Okay, it really didn't matter what shape he was in. It really didn't matter, does it? Right? It really didn't matter what he brought back. It didn't matter. The past even didn't matter. To him, it didn't matter. But he was joyful and ecstatic. And the rest of the story, the father just restores. And the prodigal is pretty quiet. He doesn't say a thing after this. Not a thing. Right? He's very inactive. Why such an ecstatic joy and excitement? And I think the last verse speaks it, shares it. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. Okay? You can almost feel, okay? I don't know whether you ever had a sick child. You know, when the temperature rises to 104, 105, you can't sleep when your child is sick. Okay, you can't really work. Your heart is just focused on him. But can you imagine a dead child? I think he means it. You could almost sense, you could almost feel the pain of the father. This dead son came back to me alive. Okay, that's the heart of the father. Okay, do you sense the pain? Right? Imagine a dead son, not knowing when he will return, ever gonna return. And he was waiting every single day. And I try to think about this story that I heard. You know, one of the brothers shares in his testimony, when he used to drink a lot, you know, his father and mother couldn't go to sleep until he gets home safe and hears the key dropped, right? Until your son returns home safe, it's impossible for fathers and mothers to just rest. Okay? And finally he came back. And it's ecstatic and it's joyful. That's part one. Part two. Okay. I don't know whether you can see it. These are pigs right here. Okay. And this is the man sitting, coming to senses. Okay. I think sometimes we need to go to the bottom of the bottoms to come to senses. In fact, I think that's how God operates a lot. Okay. We just need to come to low of the lowest to realize the reality. Okay, so he came to senses, and father runs to him with compassion, not anger, not sort of like rebuke or not a reasoning, nothing like that, but he just runs to him without any reservation, without any reasoning. Okay, and then there is a father's embrace. Do you see this? This is the prodigal. I kind of sense the firm grip and tears on father's face. Not much tear here, but a lot of tears here. Yeah. Okay? I think about when you return, when we return, right? He just embraces you. There's no reasoning, no rebuking, no like yelling at him, nothing like that. Just simple embrace. Okay, that's what we sense. Part two. Okay, this is the part that we normally don't look at, but I want us to look at this. Okay, part two is about the older son. Now his oldest son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard the music and dancing. There was a party going on, right? Because the dead son came alive. And the older brother called one of the servants and asked what these things are, what this means. What's going on? And he said to him, your brother has come. Your father has killed the fattened calf, and because he received him back safe and sound. And now I want you to look at verse 28. Okay, all of you. Okay, because I think this is the point of the story that Jesus was telling the Pharisees and teachers of the law. Okay. The older brother was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and treated him. The word entreated means either pleaded or begged. NIV says, you know, father just came out, started begging to the older son. Okay, and the older son answers his father, and which reveals his heart. Look. This many years I have served you, or slaved you, J read. I've never disobeyed your command all these years, yet you never gave me a young goat that I may celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, do you notice? He doesn't even call him my brother came, right? Son of yours came. This son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes. You kill the fattened calf for him. Okay? And then the father responds, the father's heart. Son, you're always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It is fitting to celebrate and to be glad, for it is your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. Okay? That's part 2. Okay? Okay. Older brother was angry. Why was he angry? Do you this story reminds of you any other story that we recently talked about? I hope it does. It sounds so reminiscent of Jonah's story, doesn't it? Jonah's story is in the Old Testament, and older prodigal story is in the New Testament, right? 120,000 people repented and he was angry, and his brother repented and came home and he's angry. How do you explain it? Okay, I want you to think about it. He was angry and he refused to go in. Okay, and the father's action, he came out, he should have yelled at him, but he doesn't. You know what he does? Son, son. You know what he does? He comes out, son. I don't understand this father. I have 2 sons. They're like 2 prodigals, right? I don't understand this father. He comes out and I sense gentleness, begging, entreating, pleading, son, you're always with me. Whatever I have is yours. Do you hear the tone of voice? Right? And older brother's heart is revealed right here, right? Look, this many years, I've done this much. I've served and slaved you. Can you believe this? He's lived home as an heir, but he lived like a slave. Isn't that kind of sad? The truth of the matter is, so many Christians live like slaves. They do, actually, inside the house. Right? This many years, I've done this so much, and I've slaved for you. I have never disobeyed your command. Now, can I just ask you, could that be true? I've never disobeyed? That's a bold claim, isn't it? Maybe on the outside, but inside he was boiling. I think he was rioting. Right? Yet you never give me a young goat that I may celebrate with my friends. I have slaved for you. I've never disobeyed you. That's a bold claim, right? And he's so right. Okay, I'm right. Okay, he's wrong. And you could almost sense, I deserve it, but he doesn't. Do you hear him? I deserve it, but he doesn't, right? You could almost sense what is coming, right? It sounds like feeling and senses the bitter spirit and grumbling heart of same Jonah. That's what I sense. It's really, really sad. And this spirit lives on. The spirit lives on. Then what follows? Just like the Israelites and Jonah, he's non-tender, non-compassionate, pretty harsh, judgmental, accusatory spirit. Okay? Don't you see it? Right here. But when this brother of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes. How do you know that? How do you know that? I don't know how he knew. But even if he did, why do you bring it up? Why are you doing that? Why are you accusing? Right? You killed the fattened calf for him. In other words, he doesn't deserve it, but I deserve it because all these years I have served. All these years I have been slaving for you, and I didn't get anything. Basically, that's what he's saying. Okay? Older brother. Now, again, I want us to focus on the father's response. Okay? Father's response right here. He said to him, son. Okay? Son. I think there was a pause after that. He was furious, but father comes out, son. Right? Son. Listen. Listen. You're always with me. Okay? Whatever I have is yours.
I don't know what you sense, okay? But that's part two. I want us to think about father's heart toward the youngest son and the older son briefly, okay? Here's the youngest son story, part one. He was an ingrate, ungrateful, wretch, despicable person. Do you agree? Right? Can you imagine? You go to the father, why don't you die so I could get what I deserve? You know, that's basically what he did. He was a ingrate, ungrateful, wretch, despicable person. Yet, father's heart was longing for his return. It didn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Father's heart really doesn't matter how he is, because he is his son. He wanted him to return. Didn't really matter what happened in the past, okay? What shows, what he brings, as long as he returns. As long as he returns home, as long as he returns to the Father. It doesn't matter. That's father's heart. Can you imagine that? Secondly, to the father, the son was dead. That was mentioned twice in the story, which means it speaks about father's suffering heart. You know, father's heart is suffering right now. Did you know that we talked about this last week? When we do not come back to him, he hold with patience, great patience, waiting for your return and reach repentance. It hurts, okay? When you become a father, you'll probably have a better grasp. Those of you who are fathers, probably you know. When your child is sick, you can't sleep. It aches. It's painful. Right? It's painful. And I noticed as soon as the younger prodigal returned, there was no rebuke, no reasoning, but bring quickly the best robe. The ring, shoes, best robe. Who wears the best robe? Obviously the father and the son, the owner, the heir. Right? All he's thinking about is as soon as he returns, he doesn't even listen to him. Go get the best robe now, quickly. That's all he cares about. In his mind, I think, in the father's mind, he was never not his son. Right? Do you hear his heart? Ring, dignity, covenant, right? Shoes, freedom, not a slave. He wants him to be restored right away. The best for him as a son, quickly, and he's alive. That's all he cared. That's father's heart. He restores, he pours grace, and he does the rest. Do you notice? Younger prodigal doesn't even say a word afterward. He's very inactive. Father just kind of takes over. Right? To him, the prodigal was always with him and never not his son. Okay, what about father's heart toward the older son? Okay, the older son was an ungrateful, ingrate, great, and angry, bitter, fully self-righteous prodigal inside the house. Okay, I think about this. There are only two sons. Okay, younger prodigal and older prodigal. I was thinking about which one am I like? If you're a son, you're probably either one or the other. Okay, and I was thinking about which one am I like? Probably I would say I was more like the second son, the older son, because I am an older son, right? Until last year. Okay, I was like, why isn't people changing? Why isn't people repenting? No, it's not. You know, until last year. But when last year came, no. I need to repent. I need to repent. Okay. The older son was self-righteous, bitter, angry, ingrate, ungrateful, inside the house, yet father's heart was kind. Have you noticed? Now this shocks me. Okay? If it was you, if it was me, I don't think it would be like that, right? What's the matter with you? Aren't you the oldest son? Shouldn't you know better? What's the matter with you? Probably I will deal with my older son like that, but he didn't do that. Son. NLT says, dear son. Son. Okay? I hear some of you fathers calling your child son. Josh, son, I heard. It's that sense of tenderness, right? Father deals with him with kindness towards him. Son, dear son, you're always with me and I'm always yours. And I want to share what father's role is briefly. Okay? Those of you who are fathers who want to be fathers. Okay? I think we could see it right here. Okay? I think number one father's role is, the most important father's role is, let your child know who he is. Okay? This is what I mean. Okay? You are my beloved. With you, I love you. Okay? Without the father, children grow up not knowing where the boundaries are. Okay? Father gives that sense of security to a child. That's how it works. You're my child. Okay? I'm always there with you. I love you, son. Let him know who he is. Okay? That's number one role, I think. And Father, God, does that. I am with you. I'm always there with you. You are my child. Doesn't he do that? Let you know who you are and bring security in the inner person. Okay? Without it, you grow up insecure. How could you not? Right? Secondly, Father brings affirmation child's need. Okay? By telling, you're my son, and by telling, you're always with me together, and by Father being there, you bring that safety. Okay? When you're little, you feel fearful, right? That's when the fathers come in and bring safety to a child. Right? Don't be fearful. I am with you. Doesn't God say that all the time? Fear not. I am with you. Bring that safety to a child. Okay? Father's roles. Number one, bring that security. Number two, bring that affirmation of who I am. Okay? You are my child. That's the identity. Okay? It's not a medical doctor thing. It is not a, you're a smart boy thing. You are my child. And I love you. How do you tell your child? Not just with the words, but with the love and presence. Father needs to be at home. Okay? That's why I think there's a problem with 20 million fatherless children. Fatherless children growing up in fear and insecurity. Can we bypass this and get married? I don't know. I do not know. Okay? So Father's heart toward not only to the younger prodigal who was repenting, but the second older one who was ridiculously self-righteous, same spirit, very kind to them. Okay, let me just summarize. Father's heart for both of them. Okay, first, God's longing for the dead and the lost to return is no neutral, shallow one. I hope you see this. There are a lot of lost people here and outside the church. A lot of them. In God's mind, they are dead. It's painful. And the longing for them is no neutral one. It's a painful one. He longs for them to come back. Father's love, Father desires you to come home. Jeremiah 31. This church started 7 years ago with that promise. There is hope for your future. Your children are coming home. Do you catch it? Your children are coming home. Okay? Secondly, I think it is the same kind of love. If you notice, younger son or the older son. I think the worst thing a father can do to two sons is show favoritism. Sinful thing, right? Showing favoritism. We see that in Jacob and Esau's story. We see it in all these stories, sinful stories. When you show favoritism, it just ruins everything, right? But Father doesn't show favoritism. He loves the younger prodigal. And don't you see he loves the older prodigal? Although none of these two deserve it. Right? I think that's the Christian message. The Christian message is Father's heart towards undeserving. It's Father's heart. Okay, I'll let you come in. It's not that. Okay, I forgive. No, it's not that. It's Father's heart. That's the Christian message. Right? Younger son, terrible guy. Terrible. Why don't you die? I don't care. Let me get what I need. Right? And you know what? I see a lot of people live like that. I've seen people live like that. What about the oldest son? Right? Stayed home, but I've been slaving for you all these years. I've done this. I deserve it. He doesn't, but I deserve it. Oh, it'll break my heart. But he treats him with kindness. That's Christian story, brothers and sisters. That's Christian story. Lastly, God's amazing love for these two sons. And I was thinking about this. Would you think with me? How much more for his one and only son? Can you imagine that? We need to think about things like that. I have 3 children. Some of you have 2. Some of you have 1. Some of you are waiting. Right? Children. Now, your own children, one and only son. Imagine to God the Father, who has an infinite love toward his one and only son eternally. Not 1 year, 2 years, but eternally. Can you imagine the love? Yet he gave him up to get you and I as sons and daughters of God. That's the love of God. That's huge, deep, profound, infinite. Yet he desires you to come home. He desires you to come home, brothers and sisters. He desires you to come home. Okay? A lot of times I think people need to get to pig's pen. And that's how foolish we are, we human beings are. But he desires, longing for you to come home. That's the Christian message. Father's heart. Although you know you don't deserve it, you know I don't deserve it. You may be like younger prodigal, you may be like older prodigal. You may be both, I don't know. But you're one of the two. You're definitely one of the two. I am definitely one of the two. But he still treats you and I with kindness. Okay? Let's just bow.